Hi guys, and welcome to another review. It's been a long time coming this, but now post kind of pandemic stuff I'm starting to get back on top of, so we're now able to do more of these. But let's get straight into it, shall we? So this game is called City of Gangsters, and the idea of it is you start a crime syndicate from nothing and grow it into a well-oiled money machine. You build speakeasies and legal distilleries, manage production chains and resource distribution. And then what you got to do is smuggle goods from out of town and bribe police officers to look the other way, gain power and get a crew together and keep your rivals under your thumb. Eliminate the competition and rule the city, but most importantly, you've got to keep the money flowing. The game is set in the Prohibition area around 1920s, and what we're going to do is have a little look at it and see how well it plays. Okay guys, a quick disclaimer. I was given a key by the developer so I could review this game for you, so a big thank you to them for giving me the opportunity to review this and let you guys know my thoughts. Okay, so let's start by going through the specs. Now, as you can imagine, this game runs on most computers, so you shouldn't have too many issues there. The minimum requirements, it requires a 64-bit processor and operating system, so Windows 10 is a minimum. Processor is an i5, i7 or i9 or AMD Ryzen, and it needs 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now for graphics, it needs a 700 series NVIDIA or newer, or an AMD R5, R7, R9 200 series or newer. You can also run it on the Intel Iris HD 5000 or newer, and it's DirectX version 11. Now storage space, it says 1 gigabyte. Obviously that may vary slightly depending on the version that you purchase. But since we're talking about purchases and or versions, let's see what different editions they currently have. Now, the different versions that they have available at the moment is the standard and the deluxe version. Now, both versions have the base game, and they both, if you pre-purchase, you get the pre-purchase bonus pack. But if you get the deluxe edition, you also get the Bourbon bootlegging DLC. Now, within that, you get the Cincinnati map, new resources, additional missions, new crew skills, Cincinnati themed buildings and unique victory conditions. Okay, now in regards to pricing, the game has obviously two different editions, and there's also a pre-purchase price and a standard release price. So if you're pre-purchasing the game, you have the standard and deluxe edition. The standard is £22.34 or $25.49. The deluxe edition is £25.49 or $29.49. Now, the pre-purchase price is up until the 9th, which is when they launch. That's the 9th of August. And after that, it'll go back to its standard pricing, which the standard edition is £26.29 and $29.99, or the deluxe will be £29.99 or $34.99. So price-wise, I think the pricing structure is set exactly where it should be. I'm actually quite happy with it. When you look at it compared to some AAAs, which charge ridiculous amounts of money now for games, I think this is a really good price structure for what you're getting and the actual content that you'll be getting within the game. This is the main menu that you see when you first start the game. You have your play tutorial, new game, load game, settings and quit, plus you have your developer and publishers links at the bottom, along with the social links for the actual game as well. If we go into the settings, now the settings aren't that extensive, but you don't need them to be in a game of this style. It's essentially you're just trying to make it so it'll run on the type of system you've got, and you're not trying to fine tune it to the best performance possible. Now it's got multiple languages, which is a very good start for any game really, and it's got about another 5 options you can choose depending on what you want for the gameplay. So the type of cycles for day-night cycles. You can also choose how your number values show for whatever you're used to, and also if you're on imperial or metric system, you can then convert using the capacity tool as well. So you can change a lot into there. I'll go into the graphics in a second, but you've got 3 options on the audio, which to be honest is all you really need. And then the controls, although there's a lot of bindings here for the different controls you can use, you can do it all from your mouse. The only controls I use is WASD, so WASD, for moving the camera about. But again, you can do it from the mouse. It's just easy. It's just easy for me to use the keyboard and mouse combo and go quickly. The rest of them are more kind of hotkeys to open certain panels up that you need. Now, if you go into the graphics, There's not a mass amount of options here. You get your resolution, where you can choose whichever resolution you want. Mine only goes up to 1080 because my monitors only support 1080 at this present moment. And you can also choose your scale. Now the scale by default is to 125% on my system. It did anyway, and to be honest, it's not intrusive for me. That is a good size, so I've not bothered changing it, but you can change to suit what you prefer. Now you can also change your VSync, shaders, visual quality, and post-processing. The only thing I did was turn VSync off. I did have this set up at the 280Hz, which my monitor supports as well. And essentially that is it in a nutshell. You have your minimum, low, high, and high settings for the visual quality. Now, I can't imagine many people struggling to play this at our highest settings, but if you do, then those options are there to try and help you get the most out of your system. So moving on to the gameplay, how does it play? Well, it's a mafia management sim which is based in the 1920s America. Now you get 3 locations on the standard package, which is Chicago, Detroit, and Pittsburgh, and you also get Cincinnati if you have the DLC. It's single player using the Unity engine, and you start at the year 1920 at the beginning of the Prohibition era. And the idea is you're arriving into the city and you're trying to strike it big. So you start with nothing and you've got to build yourself up within the city and basically get renowned and start your own mafia outfit. The game is a bird's eye view, which is turn-based, and what you have is action points and movement points, which you spend by controlling your particular character and moving them certain amount of spaces. It's all done on block corners, as is one space. And then action points is any interaction you do with any of the shops or filling up your vehicle with stuff, anything that requires you to actually do something within the game. Now, you have the city in its entirety, as you can see in the bird's view here, and anything that you can't see is kind of covered by a sepia fog of war. And as you see things, it then comes into color and basically shows the boundaries of what you've seen or searched. Now, your particular territory has like a blue box going around it, which basically says your sphere of influence. Obviously, outside that, you can have relationships and you can also be selling goods or interacting with the people in those particular shops and eventually approach them to improve your territory and increase it. Alternatively, one of the ones on your area can then also approach any adjacent corner to try and increase the territory, and they will be solely responsible for getting the collection money for that area. Now, as you're searching around, obviously each corner uses one move point, and then any action you do within that corner or anywhere else on the map will use up one action point. And what you have to do is basically build up your empire by spreading your territory, getting more people, more money, and opening more businesses, and becoming the top dog within the city against all of your opponents. Now, when it comes to opponents, you have what's classed as main families, which are basically other mafia leaders or gangster leaders. And you also have what is classed as troublemakers, which are basically like a small little outfit, not really any renowned or anything like that, and they basically terrorize one corner. Normally what you'll find is when they're around, anybody in the vicinity will stop or will be scared to work with you, because these thugs will generally just roughen them up and they're trying to take control without having any of the real power. So normally you'll find they're restricted to one corner, whereas obviously the other mafia or gangster bosses can start gaining territory and basically spread the same as yourself, and they can be a bit more of a threat. So with the game being turn-based, basically what you get is so much you can do in each turn, then you have to end to the next turn, which will then take you to the next month. At the end of each month, so each 12 turns, you get almost like an end-of-year report. It'll basically let you know how you're doing, how you're ranking against the other people within there. I believe there's 10 other families within the city, and then you can basically see how you're stacking up. But also it will then let you know financially how things are going and give you basically all the information on what's happened over that previous year and if you're actually improving or not. And what the way you improve is you've got to start getting more a sphere of influence, so growing your territory, getting more people on side. You get certain people to look after certain hooded areas, as it were, and what they will do is collect money for protection from you. or for you, should I say. The other way you can do it is also you can have resources and you can start selling it. So say, obviously being the Prohibition era means that alcohol is made illegal. So selling wine, moonshine, cider, or any kind of products like that is always a good way to make some money, and you'll always find some people which will buy it on the down low, and you can then start creating a network from there. Saying this, what you do have is you start off in a family member's, like most of the time I've done it, it's been my aunt, and you start in their house, and then what you do is they have their main storefront, but you can create behind the storefront in like the back room a second or secondary business. Now this can be anything from bootlegging, it can be a distillery for moonshine, brick wine, so kind of it's kind of multitudes, and then you can kind of scale it up from there. Essentially you can then get as you can then start producing this stuff and then selling it to the local area or further afield, and then that will start building your relationship with them. They can then start putting you in contact with other people to try and help build that relationship elsewhere, or you can go out alone and basically just try and build it yourself. Now, certain people, if they don't know you, will not talk to you about what they're interested in or what they're buying and selling because they don't trust you. And on the offshoot of that is if you've done something to upset them, or if they're with another family, then what can happen is they can then have a negative opinion on you, which means they will refuse to work with you regardless, and you'll have to try and build that relationship. Now that can happen over time, or you can use connections of people you know to help you get that relationship back. Now, one thing that you will find is that there are cops and they have certain beats or patrol areas. You can bribe the cops, and you can also essentially get them to turn the other way. In fact, if you bribe them and get on good terms with them, they will even let you look in their vehicle and take anything they've kind of confiscated from their local rounds. That could be weapons or anything else. When you first start out, it's just you on your own, and it can take a little bit of time just to get going because you need to obviously make money while building your sphere of influence. In doing so, there can be a lot of micromanaging at the start where you're constantly delivering things, picking up money, doing collections, moving materials around. So whether it be like getting stuff so you can start making wine, or then start sending it out to people and things like that. As you get bigger and you increase your territory, you'll start being able to employ other hoods or members. In that case, what you can do is then send them out to do the work for you. You go buy them a car, get them in the car, and then you can send them out to essentially transport your goods from your main head of operations across to wherever it is that wants to buy the product that you're selling. And you can also get them to start picking up materials in what you need to then produce the product that you're trying to sell, whether that be moonshine, wine, whatever it is you're looking at selling. Now from that, you can then start growing even more, and then you can use it frees you up to then start doing a territory searching, getting people off your land, and also moving, essentially choosing which way you want to start to expand to. Now, as you start building up, obviously, then you've got to start collecting the money for protection. Now, this is when another person could come in and you can get them going around literally all the hoods collecting money up. Now, you can start chopping and choosing, like if there's certain people that are going to certain hoods, you can get them to collect while they're there. But the idea is, as you get further, you can get them doing the more micromanaging tasks so you can get on and actually expand your empire. You can also attack your other members and troublemakers. Now, that although when you go to attack them, it kind of does an RNG type attack system. So you have stats, and if your stats are better, you've got better chance of getting more critical hit points against the other. So you don't actually do the attack. It's all done for you, but you choose who it is you're going to attack and what weapons you use. And if you want, you can take multiple people there and do one after the other kind of thing. And then there's different states you can put them in. You can injure them, you can roughen them up, you can actually incapacitate, and obviously you can kill them. Alternatively, your attack might be ineffective. But that seems to be more randomized based on stats, and every weapon you have has a bracket of minimum and maximum damage that it can provide. And what you can do is level up your character, which will then increase those stats and basically make it more effective. This is just some of the ways that you can grow within the environment and the city and basically make your way up to the top. Now, each city does have its own kind of challenges to overcome, as well as its own aesthetics and look. And the idea of the game is you've got to get to the top dog and hit one of the victory conditions before 1933, which is when the Prohibition era comes to an end and booze suddenly becomes legal again. Obviously, once that happens, you then start losing the opportunity to make money from selling illegal alcohol, and it becomes game over. Moving on to the sounds. Now, the soundtrack to it is very nice and reminiscent of the age and era that it's trying to portray. And it's nothing that's too intrusive, but it's also quite relaxing and quite nice to have in the background, which is something that kind of complements its art style and also the pacing of the game and style and genre that it's trying to portray. Moving along to the bug side of things, I have to say that considering this is a pre-release version, it is really polished and I've not come across hardly any bugs. In fact, I think I've only seen one in the whole game, and bearing in mind there's still time that they could get that sorted out, so I can't really fault them for how smooth and how well the game actually plays through. There doesn't seem to be anything that I've encountered that's really caused any problems. So in conclusion, what do I think of City of Gangsters? Well, I was a massive fan of Gangsters Organized Crime, which was a game that came out in the 90s. It was kind of basically similar to this style, where you are a lead of a boss, you get a bird's eye view, and you send out the tasks and get your men to do all of the duties, and you basically tell them what it is you want them to do, and then you grow in territory. Now, I've played multiple gangster games throughout the time of the strategy genre, like Omerta or Empire Sim, just to name a couple, and those games were good in their own right, but they never really captured the kind of environment that Gangsters Organized Crime or the enjoyment that I got from that particular game. But this game seems to have scratched that itch which I've been looking for in a gangster game or management gangster game that I don't seem to have been able to get anywhere else. So I have to say, if it's something that you were a fan of the old gangster organized crime games, then you really want to give this one a go. This is going to be the closest thing you've ever had to playing that of modern day games. That being said, early on in the game, it still has a few little micromanagement kind of aspects to it where you're constantly going backwards and forwards to gain money so you can then start expanding your territory. But once you get to a certain size, you can start hiring other hoods to actually start doing some of this work for you. You can start offloading the micromanagement side to them so you can then get on and start expanding at a better pace and start dealing with your opponents in a much better fashion. So yes, there is a little bit of micromanagement in there, but to me it hasn't detracted from the game at all. So like I said before, it's definitely a game that I think is worth giving a go if you like a managerial sim, if you like an economy sim, or even the gangster Prohibition era. Definitely give it a go. I've been CT Tech Gaming, and this has been my review of City of Gangsters. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe. I've got a few more reviews en route as well. And I do also stream on Twitch, which I'll put the link in the description. So feel free to pop over. I will be streaming this game as well, so you can get a first-hand view and feel for it. And I'll catch you guys next time.